Welcome, everyone, to today's HR Bytes work break. We have a slew of things to talk about today and a wonderful panel of guests. Today's HR Bytes work break is powered by HR Geckos. Here is an announcement from our sponsor. HR Geckos empowers HR leaders by automating tasks and enabling employee self-service so they can focus on strategy. Developed by HR professionals for HR professionals, HR Geckos helps you take the pulse of HR operations and prioritize what matters most: people. HR Geckos. Interested in learning more about HR Geckos? Get in touch. Schedule a consult with our team at hrgeckos.com or simply scan this QR code. We are thrilled to announce our strategic partnership with Paycor, now a Paychex company, and the HR Geckos team is looking forward to empowering Paycor and Paychex customers with AI-powered help desks and workflows to automate repetitive tasks, real-time workforce analytics to drive strategic decision-making, and 24/7 support for employees anytime, anywhere. You can scan the QR code or go to the following link to find us on the Paycor Marketplace. Also, since it's summer, transform your HR team to be as agile as a gecko. Our summer special is on offer through August 31st, 2025, and you can save up to 50% on the annual contract. We'll post the link to contact our sales team. You can also scan the QR code on the screen here, and you can also sign up for a free 3-week trial at hrgeckos.com. So thanks to HR Geckos for sponsoring today's HR Bytes work break session. So let's get into today's content. Welcome everyone to today's HR Bytes work break. I'm your host, Jay Pulaki, and joining me are my co-host, Nicole, and we've got a packed agenda today covering all of the latest developments in AI and HR technology that every HR leader needs to know about. So welcome, and I'd love Nicole to tell us a little bit about what you're doing and what's rocking in your world today.
Hi, everyone. I'm Nicole Roberts. I'm an executive HR advisor, coach, facilitator, and host of the Amplify Your Signal podcast, where I share the stories of job seekers and professionals in transition. I help organizations align their people strategies with business outcomes, especially during times of transition. So transformation, growth. And as a coach and trainer, I work with leaders to really build that capability or confidence in with their culture. And so really excited to dig in, and I love these monthly chats.
Wonderful. Well, as the founder and chief gecko, aka CEO at HR Geckos, I always love to learn from everyone in and outside of the HR and HR tech space. And so our special guest today is Jeanette Leeds. Jeanette, we are especially excited to have you here. You're a brilliant mind, a brilliant collaborator in the HR tech industry. And thank you for joining us for this deep dive into what's happening in our space today. And I also wanted to say, you can connect with either Nicole or me on LinkedIn. So you can scan these codes, or even Jeanette on LinkedIn. And Jeanette has graciously agreed to be on our board of advisors here at HR Geckos. So she's one of the brilliant minds who's joining our great board of advisors. You can find all of our advisors on our website at hrgeckos.com. But welcome, Jeanette. Tell us a little bit about what's rocking in your business and HR technology space today.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. Really appreciate the warm welcome. This is awesome. I'm just also, by the way, loving the girl power thing we have going on here. So let's see, who am I? Jeanette Leeds. I have been in the HR tech space for 25 years, but somehow I'm only 24 years old. So you can do the math and figure that out. So I run Leads & Co., which is an HR tech advisory and C-suite fractional services company. Also do certified AI literacy workshops and coaching. Prior to that, I was at AMS running their high volume hourly RPO practice. And before that, I was at Olio running America's as well. And, I think the best part, similar to you, Jay, is like, I started out as a practitioner. So on Wall Street, like recruiting, HR, all of that before I made the switch over. So sort of had this unique, point of view because I sat in the variety of seats where I was a practitioner and then I was on the vendor side and then I was on the RPO staffing side. And so I sort of see how like the world of combining in people, process, tech, and now this great new world of AI, Gen AI specifically, how that all combines together. So I'm really excited to be here and talk about what's going on in the world. So thank you for having me.
Well, there's a lot happening.
There's a lot happening.
We're talking, Jeanette, and we have questions for you. So be prepared. We are going to have one of those lightning rounds in between our conversations to glean your insights and share them with today's HR Bytes Work Break audience as well. So before we dive in, I wanted to just let you know that if you'd like to submit questions here in the comments, please do so. We are able to, look you guys up and help you understand what's happening in the HR tech world without having to, reach us via email. We make it easier. You can write to us directly here on LinkedIn. Drop your DMs in the messenger here, and we are happy to chime in as and when you send us any questions our way. So ready, guys, for today?
Let's do it.
All right.
I think so.
All right. So I have to ask, did anyone else feel like they needed a coffee IV drip this week and this month after reading all of and experiencing all of the AI developments in our space?
I think between all of the new and revisions and up and coming and everything that's new and changing and exciting, we're kind of getting whiplash from it all. And that combined with the incredible heat that is spreading across the country, I think everybody needs a nap.
I mean, seriously, I think yesterday in my car it said 102 and I'm like, enough already. I live on coffee. People are like, where do you get your energy? So coffee, IV, like extra intense for this month. I mean, the amount of it's been an intense month. I feel like June normally is, but you like with everything going on, it's been extra. So
well, the world around us is definitely transforming as we're all experiencing it, not just climate, but AI, world of work, everything is transforming, right? It's like drinking from a fire hose sometimes. So speaking of transformation, did anyone catch our HR Bytes, or rather HR Gecko's webinar that we hosted recently on June 12th? Let me bring up on the screen.
I'm looking to see if there's any comments happening.
I know. I'm looking for it too.
I know. We're like, ooh, can we walk and chew gum at the same time and see?
So we had some of our brilliant advisors on this webinar too. This was almost 2 weeks ago now, on June 12th. And you can catch a replay by clicking on the QR code here or, going directly to hrgeckos.com. But, all of this transformation and building and innovation that's happening in the HR tech stack in organizations is really mind-blowing, as well as very, exuberating and exhilarating, at least for me, because I live and thrive in this space. How are you guys feeling?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's, what I think is really interesting is there's a mix of organizations and people out there that are like, really digging deep into it. When I think of like Gen AI, but just AI in general, right? And we also hear the word about like agents and automation, everything with an A, right? It's like we only at the beginning of the alphabet. And yet I'm still struck by there's such a number of people who are not like starting to learn about this. So there's a mix of like people who are like in organizations full steam ahead, right? And then others that are just like, oh, I'm a little scared, I'm nervous, I don't know exactly what this is all about, and almost like overwhelmed. And so I feel like this month seems to be even more of a disparity there. And it's like the opportunity where it's like, it's okay. Like my view is like, it's okay, everyone. Just, you can take a step. You don't have to run a marathon, just little baby step, almost like crawl first before you're going to even walk. And so I that seems to be a lot of what in talking to various companies and organizations, that's what I'm seeing. It's like two separate parts of like the bell curve.
Yeah.
I don't know what others are.
Well, there's so much happening, right? And when we hosted this webinar, I had obviously lots of questions, like I always do, and I have for you today, Jeanette. But there were so many ways in which the strategic foundations need to be built today, and there's so many different innovative ways in which people leaders are building these strategic foundations, and business leaders are building these strategic foundations. So some of the key takeaways, and feel free to chime in, Nicole and Jeanette. I just wanted to reiterate that there's a lot of stuff happening, but before selecting technology, always you need to define your strategy and identify the problems that will bring incremental value by adding any of these new technologies or AI to those challenges and strategies, right? And that was what was discussed primarily during our entire 45 to 1 hour conversation on June 12th. And definitely, we all talked about focusing on connecting talent, technology, and data for this clear framework. And I think Albert Loyola, one of our advisors and HR tech analysts and industry analysts, mentioned this. And because, technology alone won't work without any of this proper data infrastructure and the systems integration. And we all know all of this is broken in our HR worlds, and broken a lot. So that was one of the big takeaways from the conversation. And also the skills-based transformation happening, right? Because I think Jim talked about hiring ready now talent, like they can hit the ground running, costs 600% more than developing existing employees with a 3 to 6 month readiness timeline. So there's a huge, takeaway there for all organizations, with all of the pink slips that are being handed out. 600% costs, more. It costs more when it comes to ready now talent versus developing existing employees. Nicole, you were saying something.
Well, I was just going to say, you need to maximize your system functionality before you throw people at broken processes, because that's simply not scalable. Yeah. But even backing before that is looking at, from a change management perspective, from a communication perspective, what are your issues? What are your pain points that you're looking for this technology to address? And make sure that that's included when you're sharing about, to improve adoption, and making sure that you're not making tech decisions without your input from your HR team, so that you make sure that you're not going to implement this and then have poor usability and, a low ORI and on this. You want to make sure that this is a cross-functional group that gets together and makes the decisions about how you're going to be implementing and where, so that your tech stack is simplifying decisions and not complicating them.
I think that's such a great point, because it's like, you have to really think about those outcomes. What's the use case? What are you trying to achieve? And I feel like so many times people will be like, oh, I don't like that piece of technology or this or that. And you start to have that conversation and dig in a little deep. And it was like, well, wait a second. Like, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve? What's your process? And you're like, well, of course you don't like it, because this is set up to be for, I don't know, a large enterprise organization, and you're a small company, right? Like, I just thinking, like, what's your use case? What are you trying to achieve? Being really thoughtful about that. Because I actually don't believe, like, this is like sort of like one of these like hot takes, like where people are like, oh, this company's no good or what. Like, I don't agree. I think well, I shouldn't say every, vast majority of like tech out there is really good for what it was designed to do and what it's for and for that use case. But there's that mismatch a lot of times. And so I think, Nicole, you're so onto something. A lot of organizations just need to take a step back for a second. Okay, whoa, what am I trying to achieve? What are my problems? Like, and then Jade, your point, like, what does the data tell me? Like, where are there some issues there that I can dive in and see from a fact-based standpoint? Because I think a lot of times, for better or worse, we can be so reactive in the world of HR. For better words, like, oh, this, there's a fire drill, we got to go run off. But like, wait, like, take a step back, look at what the data is telling me. What is the use case? What are we trying to fix? What's that outcome? And now let's figure out what's the right tech or AI, which sometimes can be one and the same, or the automation. So that's such a great key point.
Yeah, if you can't articulate where you're failing, then you're not going to be able to articulate what success looks like. And any program, any tech that you try to implement is going to fail because you don't have that accurate idea of where are we now? Where are we trying to get to? What's that gap look like? And what is it specifically about this tech that is going to be addressing those gaps? Because HR tech is certainly not a panacea, right?
No, it's not. Definitely not. And, we all talk about the garbage in, garbage out.
Yes.
and we're all dealing with that even to this day, especially in this era of AI, right? I mean, that data is the foundation of any of this new technology. So if you want to find out how ready your AI...
Oh my God, we set that up.
I love that.
Unready it is for AI. We shared a really nice survey during our webinar last on June 12th, and I'm posting it here as well. You can also find it in the comments. There's a link to it, or you can scan the QR code. But this is a great survey to just take and look at how ready your HR department is for all of this new AI technology. So that's us for the replay of the webinar, and that's our take on the replay of the webinar. So do catch the replay and do send us your comments to either directly on LinkedIn Messenger, or you can write to us at info@hrgeckos.com. So moving on, there's this comprehensive research report from TI People, and if you know TI People, their reports are comprehensive and very well researched. So this report examines how AI will transform the HR operating models, and they analyzed across 3 large language models, 15 major companies, and 150 human experts were involved in the analysis. And I posted the key findings here. As you can see, the slide is dense and text heavy because there was so much out there. It's an 82-page report. You can find it on tipeople.com, or you can listen to the podcast that the CEO and founder, Mr. Jacobs of TI People, had a conversation and chat with David Green of the Digital HR Leaders podcast, and it's a great take on the entire report, so you can catch that there too. But briefly, and Nicole, you and I talked about this report, and I shared this report with you when we were discussing, I think a couple of weeks ago early on, and I said, wait, there'll be more stuff coming after this, and guess what? A lot more stuff has happened since then. But, some of the 5 significant myths that were debunked in this report, that AI will drastically reduce HR headcount, that AI is primarily about cost reduction, that AI will transform all HR roles similarly, and that AI and the 3-pillar HR model will suffice. And lastly, that AI and the product management re-engineering, where, you are kind of organizing around products that solve specific business problems, could be one of those panaceas, all, that would solve all our problems, but really not. So 5 of these myths were debunked in the report, and they came up with a new operating model, and the characteristics here were presented, where they offered folks to look into adopting a product oriented approach, problem solving capabilities, where you had dedicated problem solvers, working across departments, across functions, across all those traditional boundaries we have in organizations. They talked about AI enabled service delivery. So, all of the new capabilities to design and manage AI powered services. And of course, the resource allocation. How do you make it so fluid that it is seamless to everyone in the organization, especially the talent based resource organization allocation? And of course, data, that we've been harping on in today's conversation, and we've been shouting from the rooftops forever about advanced analytics, embedded throughout all of our functions, especially HR. So, before I dive into the role specific impact that they spoke about, what's your take on this? I know, Jeanette, you didn't have access to this, but I don't know if you read this off chance.
I have not. So I'm like, ooh, but this is great. I
Yes.
actually agree with a lot of these myths that have been debunked.
Yeah, no, it's a very good report. I mean, it's a PDF. I'll send it to you after the show. You can have a look at it, but it's also available online, and it's not paywalled or anything. It's free for anyone to download. So they made it free. All of this good research. Nicole, did you have any thoughts around this? What was your reaction to this report?
I thought it was fascinating the way that it kept kind of reiterating about how HR needs to really just design how the work gets done using AI. And that it's interesting the roles that are emerging. Like, AI is not coming to take your job, it's actually creating new ones. I mean, we need somebody who is ensuring that the AI is used appropriately, is evaluating and testing what's coming out. And so I think that that's kind of a optimistic viewpoint of using AI in HR in the future. Is it's not coming for your jobs. It's actually looks like it's going to be creating some jobs, because we can't use AI without having any kind of evaluation of what is coming out, right? Like, you have to have a service level knowledge in order to even evaluate whether or not this is good and accurate information that's coming out. So I think it's kind of exciting.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. Everyone's like, oh no, all these jobs are going away. Yes, some are for sure. Let's be clear, there's no question.
Right.
However, just there's going to be new jobs, there already are. And if we think about it, I mean, social media, right? That didn't exist, whatever, how many years ago, right? And now there's all these roles that are or even, I mean, let's go back 25 years, 30 years, there was no internet, there wasn't online, right? So there's a whole slew of new jobs that we can't even imagine or think of that will be generated from this. Will they be shifting? Absolutely. Absolutely. But
Yeah.
it's going to be okay. And I think the other point that I hear a lot is, it's you wouldn't hire someone who doesn't know how to use email, right? Sure. And so to me, the way I think about a lot of these tools, whether it's, Gen AI, different, the different models, you got to have a baseline understanding of how to use it. Just you can't be oh, sorry, I don't know how to use email. I don't know how to use Zoom. I don't use Google Meet. That's not an acceptable answer, right? That's just not. So it's the same kind of thing. So you got to have that baseline, and it really is to make yourself much more efficient in many ways, but it doesn't take out that human element of the problem solving and critical thinking. To me, it's okay, you need to be really thoughtful of what outcome, going back to that conversation, but what outcome are you trying to achieve? How can I use this tool to get to that outcome either more quickly, or look at data in a way that maybe I wasn't able to before and can pull out trend line? There's all sorts of great things that you can do with this tool. Just there's all sorts of great things we could do with email, right? And before that was faxes, and we can communicate. So it's a new revolution, and there'd be changes, but it's just this next journey and this next chapter. So it's everyone just calm down. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Well, there's a lot of data out there that that supports what you just said too. That
Yeah.
84% of HR functions have either restructured recently or plan to within the next 2 years,
Yeah.
and that only 30% of HR leaders believe their current structure allows for the quick adaptation to changing priorities. So in the midst of all this, Jeanette, in your work, you work with all types of clients, startups to enterprise. What are you seeing in terms of the actual adoption versus the hype? I mean, there's so much talk about AI agents, AI chatbots,
Yeah.
what's happening? What do
So
you see?
here's like I'll come at this from a couple different angles, and it's because like there's times where I'll go in and I'll do like a half day, full day workshop with an organization, different sizes, and everyone's really excited, and we go through, and then it's like, okay, how does that take? How do you like embed it in? And so some I've started to do like a coaching thing, and where it's like once a week, let's meet with the organization, and go through a topic, and like how it's that thing of, in the end, a lot of this is change management, right? So it's like you get an organization or a person excited, but how do you just continue that on, right? And so I think it's really important to have like check-ins like week by week, to really start to embed that in the culture, as well, and being like, hey, it's okay, you don't have to try and do everything at once. I feel like that's a big theme that I see, is like some organizations will be like, oh wait, we got to do everything at once. No, you don't. Like, it's better just to start doing something than nothing. Related to that, I think the other thing that's fascinating to me is this smaller, I don't want to say the company, but so I'm making a generic statement. Small, mid-sized companies that can really embrace this and start to really harness the power of AI and make these changes. And I'm not saying don't have oversight, but again, they're going to be set up in a way to be able to function as well, if not better, as a large enterprise who's going to move much more slowly to adopt. So I think what's going to be really interesting over the next, and I really think it's the next couple years, we're not talking like 5-10 years, is like companies as a whole, again, you think about the culture that can really adopt this, even in pieces of their company. Maybe it's not everywhere. Maybe it's like certain department. Again, just to start there, are going to just have this incredible trajectory versus I keep hearing a lot of red tape, big, large enterprise, which is understandable when you're running a company that's 10,000 people, 100,000 people. Like, yes, like you can't just make huge changes, but the ones that can, they're going to have this huge competitive advantage in the beginning. So to me, I think that's also an interest. So I just went sort of like high level and then like the, low level, how do you do, but I think that's what's happening here. And so it's across the board.
Well, that's a great segue into the other side of this equation, which is the whole doom and gloom, right? So there was this provocative piece from the HR executive with a title that probably made a lot of people spit out their morning coffee, that AI is going to take your HR job and it's about time. And I spoke to one of the authors, Scott Morris, and it's a great title, I know, right? But here's the thing, Scott Morris, he wanted to make this compelling argument that AI will eliminate HR employment if we do not transform what we do. So, the administrative burdens that they've all kept us trapped in this transactional work for decades now. And if AI is going to handle that, there is a lot of benefit to this, and the human empathy remains irreplaceable. So to me, that really resonated, because let's be honest, for decades we've been trying to transform HR into a more strategic function, and both of you can attest to all of the work that we've been doing in this regard. Many have failed because we've been drowning in the administrative tasks. There's a lot of that. But AI might finally give us that opportunity to focus on unlocking the human potential. So check out this article. Nicole and Jeanette, did you have any quick thoughts on this? Did you read it? I know Nicole must have, but I don't know if Jeanette, you had a chance to do that.
I have seen this. I mean, I agree. You know, what's so interesting, and you make such a great point, is that for so many years, right? It's like, how do we get rid of the admin burden so we can focus on what I like to say, like the fun stuff, right?
Yes.
Like it's fun connecting, doing the strategy. Maybe that's not fun for everyone. It's fun for me. But like it's really that high value type of activities. And so here is a time where like, yeah, we're not going to have a world where we have to worry about, okay, scheduling interviews or like, okay, does something get filled out or what? It'll just happen, which
Right.
is awesome. Like that is awesome. But there's still going to be that human element of like, okay, what are we really trying to achieve? Like that nuanced piece and having the conversations and really connecting with the business of like, okay, well, what are they really trying to do? Are you like an HR business partner for sales? Like, okay, what are they like really understanding to so you can have a seat at the table and you'll have the time and bandwidth to do that because all this admin stuff is just taking off. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a nirvana, right? Because it's like that's not, but it could be pretty awesome.
Right.
So
Mhm.
Exactly. And again, statistics are backing all of this up. So,
yeah.
by the end of 2025, 80% of organizations are projected to use AI for workforce planning, and 70% of employees are expected to get personalized AI driven career development plans and things of that nature, which are very personalized. So we're not just talking about the future. All of this is happening right now. Like we said, we are all drinking from the fire hose. And in addition to the doom and gloom, though, there are a lot of folks in organizations who are making headway with this. And this particular LinkedIn post by the founder and CEO of Zapier was very fascinating. This is a fascinating framework. I don't know if it's very clear on the screen. You can go on to Wade Foster's LinkedIn to see the image in a more clear manner. But they define 4 levels on measuring AI fluency in hiring folks. So this is something very positive because the 4 levels that they've defined really struck me as something that we should all be thinking about, right?
Mhm.
Unacceptable was whether there was this in the applicant, there was resistance to AI. Capable was they can use the basic tools. Their adoptive ranking was integrating AI into workflows, and the transformative ranking was redefining strategy with AI. So it's not all about just knowing how to use the tools, but it's about strategic thinking that they've built into this AI fluency kind of measurement. I really loved it. I think they had role specific questions on here, as you can see in the blurry grid. But for HR, they were asking for examples of AI enabled processes or programs where AI fluency is a core competency and not just nice to have for them. So they had really role specific kind of like you can see engineering, product support, people, HR, and for marketing.
Mhm.
So, Nicole, any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think that it is about focusing on skill building and safe experimentation when it comes to using AI and not perfection, especially because it changes literally daily on the functionality and the capabilities. So I love just people willing to be curious and try new things and see what they can do to maybe streamline a process or do something to make their job better.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's such a good point around like that experimentation, right? It's like it's okay to play around and see what you can
Mhm.
get out of it. And because it is changing daily. And I think it's also thinking about from a personal level in the professional realm, but also personal of like our default thinking for many of us is to just, do things the way we have been, whether it's in a system or maybe there's a rogue Excel spreadsheet hanging out on the side, but like really let's get rid of that. But like taking that step back and thinking like, okay, wait, I have access to these other tools.
Mhm.
And maybe if I don't through work, I have my like personal, I think like a lot of like times people think about, we had the phones like, and then it became like a bring your own device to work. I think
Mhm.
in some ways, in some organizations will start to be like, bring your own AI to work. If it's not provided or it'll be a mix, but it's like thinking about that of like, well, wait, I have these tools. Can I do this in a different or better way. And it's changing our default thinking on everything. And that's that problem solving. So it's like, okay, I have a project I'm working on, or my team is working on. Can we do this in a different way than we've been doing it before using these new tools? And really pushing yourself almost every time before you just go and be like, okay, I'm going to go do X, being like, whoa, can we do this a different way? Is there a better way? It's just pushing yourself to be part of that change all the time until it becomes second nature. And so I guess that's when you would be in how Zapier is saying, like, transformative, right? It's like personally and your organization, but it's really pushing and feeling okay to experiment and being in that safe space and having your culture of your company or your team feel like it's okay to experiment. And, maybe it'll take a little longer first, but then there'll be a great efficiency down the road. So I feel like that as a philosophy is really key.
Well, we had a question for the audience as well. Like, most of you, hopefully, the ones who are on the live event today are working with HR leaders or are HR leaders yourselves. So what levels are you, seeing your organization at? Like, what is their AI fluency when it comes to some of the stuff that's mentioned here on the screen? And what's holding you back? Do chime in the comments here, or send us your thoughts to info@hrgeckos.com, or you can send us a direct message on LinkedIn to any of us here today, and we're happy to engage and discuss what's happening in this particular sphere of AI fluency within hiring and within organizations. So I did write my first Substack, woohoo, this month, just guided by all of these conversations and drinking from the fire hose. So it's called Jay's Bytes. It's a moniker that I adopted from our podcast, which is called HR Bytes. And please, subscribe, leave your thoughts on what I wrote about how AI ready or unready your HR team is. So we'll post the link to this too in the comments, and I look forward to engaging with you while you read through Jay's Bytes. We also have wrapped up Season 4 of the HR Bytes podcast. So the last episode was up. Maggie Ruwalt, who's CHRO at Learn Behavioral, was our last guest for Season 4. And she had a lot of interesting insights on how you should be starting your AI journey today. And what are some of the first things you should be doing? And she has really been experimenting with a lot of it at Learn Behavioral as well through her team. So great information through these podcasts. We talk to HR practitioners who are adopting a digital first mindset in all of their work. And Nicole, you have a podcast yourself. Would you like to plug that in before we jump onto a legal landmine?
Sure. Yeah. So I started the Amplify Your Signal podcast earlier this year, just in response to all of the posts that I saw where people said, I'm looking for work, and everybody's natural response is commenting for reach, sharing your story, your signal, whatever. But there is so much more to somebody's story than just their resume. And so I wanted to, as my way to give back to the HR community, share stories of people who are in transition, job seekers, and tell what's not on their resume. And 4 of those guests have already found new jobs. So I'm really excited about the impact that the podcast has had so far.
Wonderful. Well, I have pulled up the QR code and link. If you'd like to, connect with Nicole and learn more about this podcast, feel free to do so again through any of the channels that we are all on all day, most of the day at least. I try not to be, but hey, that's the nature of our jobs today. Basically. So let's go back to our legal landmine. I think this is a big one. And it's a very concerning development, if you ask me, that OpenAI is to indefinitely retain all ChatGPT user logs, including those previously deleted. Let me say that again, including those previously deleted. So for HR, this means sensitive employee information that was shared via ChatGPT before they had, put together any guardrails within organizations and this could be stored indefinitely and subject to legal discovery. So a compliance nightmare waiting to happen. all of the jargon, policies that you can throw at it, HIPAA, GDPR, everything. We could be looking at serious privacy violations if HR teams have been using ChatGPT for any of our work, like performance evaluations, disciplinary actions, anything. Even if you said, "What should I do? This employee is talking to me while I don't know while on TikTok. What should I do with this employee?" If you put that into ChatGPT and it can be traced back to your org, you're in kind of compliance nightmare waiting to happen. What did you guys think about this? Have you heard about this?
It's terrifying, frankly, because think of the people that were using ChatGPT as a way to analyze large amounts of data or things like that. Like if somebody was using that in preparation for, let's say, a restructuring or layoffs or something, and they wanted to analyze a large amount of data and didn't take the time to safeguard the identifying information of their employees, this would be terrifying for them.
Well, Jeanette, moving on to what could be, a better scenario, looking ahead to 2025 and beyond, what's an AI development in HR that you think will surprise people? I mean, let's not talk about the legal landmine, but what do you think that, that's something that's not getting enough attention right now, but you think will surprise people?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, it's hard not to focus on this where it's like legal landmine, just, what's surprising, I think there's this mix of governance that's clearly happening government-wide within corporations and how do we balance this with like innovation and using the tools in the way that can really help us. And so I'm not answering your question directly, but it'll be, I think, fascinating to see how that starts to develop out. In some ways, I mean, it's sort of interesting, and maybe because I just feel like, oh, I've been in this space a while. You're sort of seeing like, if you have a system, like what's your system of record, and I've done a lot in recruiting, and you're putting in your interview notes, and it'll be like, oh, don't put the interview notes in. I've had clients over the years where you're like, okay, we're going to shut down that because we don't want someone to put it in there because then it's discoverable and da da da. Like, in some ways, this is no different than that, right? It's still like we all have systems, we all have tools, right? They're discoverable at times during these, like, how do you put guidelines around your organization to minimize risk? Mm-hmm. You can't always remove the risk. And what's that balance there? And so to me, that's like, yeah, you should be anonymizing things regardless, right? Again, this governance, and I sort of hate that word because I'm like, that's red tape. And this, like, I sort of rebel against it. And yet it's, there is a time and a place. So that will be key.
Our government seems to be stepping up to the plate a little bit in this arena as well, because the DOL's opinion letter program has some good news. They've expanded it to help employers get clear answers on how labor laws apply to real workplace situations, including AI-related such scenarios. So we can, actually take out the guesswork and actually. This is really huge for a lot of our HR profession because, how do these regulations apply to AI implementations? And we can now get official guidance on this. So we posted the link to the DOL opinion letter program here in the comments. Feel free to access it and read through most of it. It's pretty long, but if you're interested, there it is for you.
Or here's what you could do. You could take all of that, put it into your favorite, like, is it ChatGPT or like Gemini, or throw it into like Notebook LLM, like too many LLM. Anyway, that one. And it can just like create a quick little like, overview, summarize this, like, explain it to me.
Great idea. Right? Great idea. I mean, that's why you're on our board, Jeanette. Great idea.
I was like, be like
Yeah.
top level.
Yeah.
So wrapping up, it's almost Friday night, and one of the big movies that's coming out is, of course, AI related, the Megan movie, which is sci-fi horror. Megan 2.0 is coming out tomorrow. I just wanted to throw that in. If anyone's watching it, leave us some comments on what you found was interesting about how the human and AI interaction is working in this horror sci-fi, and why it could seep into our workplaces in the same manner. There are horror stories around all of this technology. So then, of course, the big elephant in the room, there is this huge lawsuit in the courtroom. Workday is facing some serious allegations about AI bias in their hiring software. And it's not just one thing. This is a discrimination lawsuit that was brought about by one of the complaint, or how do you call them, the plaintiffs, and it's about age discrimination, who alleged that based on their age, race, and disability, they were denied multiple opportunities in companies that used Workday. And then 4 more plaintiffs have joined this, so now it's turned into what they call a $1 million class action.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of tension around this. Everyone who's using Workday, and it's a lot of the big companies, So my $1 million question whenever I get an update on this is, if the AI is trained on some of the historical data that contains bias, and that's what Workday has responded to, saying, that's how it's being trained, and human oversight is still involved in all of this technology. But if that's what it's being trained on, the historical data that does contain bias, doesn't it perpetuate those biases, even if it's not explicitly kind of programmed to consider all of these protected characteristics that we've put into place? Because these are legacy systems. They've been around. I call them the dinosaurs of the HR tech stack. They've been around for a long, long time. And there's so much historical data that I'm sure they turned on for the AI to learn from, because, hey, they want to reap the benefits and turn all of that into a profit, right? So,
Right.
So I don't know if you're following this, but I see once in a while a LinkedIn post pop up, and someone else posted the other day. One of the tech analysts was promoting Workday, and then they posted, I think they were from Smart Recruiters, and they posted how a lot of this is paid to play kind of analysis that's being thrown out there, but there are no real proponents who are talking about the pros and cons of all of this in a very fair manner. So I think the crux of it is that there's a lot of tension between efficiency and fairness, and between automation and the human judgment that should be involved. So, and I think this court case is going to be one of those bellwether court cases that we learn in one of our textbooks. Like, I've not been in college or grad school for a while now, but I do read some of the books that are being written, and I'm sure it'll be one of those cases where how AI bias claims are being handled in the courts. It'll set a definite precedent. So any thoughts on that? Quick thoughts. I know we have to wrap up in a couple of minutes, but I just wanted to touch on some of the stuff that's also happening at Anthropic. This was one of the big things that came out. Nicole, you asked me to wait for something to pop up, and yes, it popped up.
I know. I said, you know what? We've got some great talking points, but I think that we should just keep an eye out and, look what happened.
Yep. And so this was, they, at Anthropic, they did this research study. There's a term called red teaming, and I learned this term from Rajamba Krishnamurthy on one of our webinars, I think the May 13th webinar, where, you're searching for scenarios that elicit harmful behavior despite a benign user request. That's called red teaming. So they used that in play, and then they found a lot of agentic misalignment. So this is another term we should all be aware of. So it makes it possible for models, all of these Gen AI models, to act similarly to an insider threat, behaving like a previously trusted coworker or employee who suddenly begins to operate at odds with the company's objectives. So yeah, one of those I don't know if you want to call them that, but one of the Yahoos that goes rogue. and and so that's the agentic misalignment that they did a study on. Fascinating stuff. All of this is, of course, online, and we'll also post it here in the comments if you'd like to follow along. But yeah, do chime in on this. We do have to wrap up. And parting thoughts from Jeanette and Nicole, 30 seconds each.
Parting thoughts. Okay, I just want to say, like, it's gonna be okay. Like, I feel like having been through, over the years, you got September 11th stuff. I was at Lehman Brothers to the very end. We got like COVID, right? Like, there's ups and downs. It's like a craziness. This is another one of these like intense times of change. Now, is it more than the others? Probably say yes, like for sure. This is like transformation, like on major steroids. It's going to work through. Are there going to be bumps and some of this crazy stuff? Yes. So buckle up, but like this will all work through. This is not the end of the world. Like, again, sometimes we have an employee that goes rogue. So AI, like there's going to be putting in guardrails for things, again, the bias with the workday, some of that stuff. I think the way I see it is it's just a matter of there's a place for humans, there's a place for tech, AI, like it's just getting that mix right. It's going to be fine. So just take a deep breath. But yes, change is here. So
thank
you. Also making sure that we are training our end users on responsible and appropriate use, because as we're seeing, putting up the T-Rex arms like, oh, well, I just put it in AI. That's what AI came up with. That's not an excuse and not an answer. So we need to be responsible with our use as well.
100% agree.
Well, it's the theme. I think the general theme should be that of preparation and intentionality, right? I mean, that should be our core theme. And for our listeners, I think the question isn't whether AI will transform HR, it's whether you lead that transformation or be led by it. And the tools exist, but the choice is yours. So that's a wrap for today's HR Bytes work break. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. Thank you for joining us. And Jeanette, thank you so much for all of those insights. Please do come back and join us on July 8th for the next HR Bytes work break. And until then, keep innovating, keep learning. And remember, the future of HR is human, just enhanced by AI.
Ooh, I love
Take
that.
care.
Love that.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.